I'll call this meeting to order on February 11th, 2025 at 7 p.m. Call to excuse Mark Strong. He'll be tardy tonight. And we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any changes to the agenda?
No changes.
Okay, and we have some communications.
There's just the response to public comment as a placeholder. There was no public comment at the last meeting, so
Okay.
we can move to the next agenda
All right.
item.
And then it looks like we have a program presentation.
Yes, program presentation tonight is on our transitional bilingual instructional program. We have our Director of State and Federal Programs, Geraldine Ashbaugh, is here this evening, and our instructional coach for the program is here, Rebecca Festa. We'll go ahead and have the board join the audience so we can see the presentation. And afterwards, we'll have the board come back up and do some question and answer.
Okay, thanks for having us again this evening. It seems like I just presented on transitional bilingual in the fall when we presented you with the grant and we received grant approval for this program, which is kind of a new ask from the state to get that approval. But tonight we just want to share with you the implementation and some of the work that we've been doing this year to improve our program. So again, I'm Geraldine Ashbaugh, and this is Rebecca Festa. This is the only slide I'll read verbatim. I feel like it's a very important slide, and it really gives you a nice overview of what the State Transitional Bilingual Program is all about. The State Transitional Bilingual Education Program, or we refer to it as TBIP, and Federal Title III address the unique needs of eligible students who come from linguistically and culturally diverse backgrounds. Both programs share the same goal: to develop language proficiency that enables meaningful access to grade level content and instruction. In state law, TBIP, or Transitional Bilingual, is a program within Washington State's Basic Education Act supporting supplemental instruction and services for language acquisition. The State Transitional Bilingual Program places a strong emphasis on cultural values, and its mission is English language learners, or ELL students, or you might hear it referred to as multilingual learners now, or MLL students, meet state standards and develop language proficiency in an environment where language and cultural assets are recognized as valuable resources for learning. This is the state MTS model. So when we talk about MTSS, we're talking about multi-tiered systems of support. So we look at tier 1 as being the core, the general ed classroom where all students receive the support that they need. In tier 2, some students might receive additional support, academic supports based on their student learning needs, and tier 3 would be more intensive academic supports for students with greater needs. So the state has really moved the transitional bilingual program to a multi-tiered system of support. And I'll show you what that looks like in West Valley. So in West Valley, I've made our own diagram here. And what that looks like is all of our multilingual learners are really served by their general education teacher, who either has expertise with multilingual learners. So maybe they've got an ELL endorsement, an English language endorsement, or they have some extensive training to help support the work that they do in the classroom, or they work with someone like an instructional coach like Rebecca who has that expertise. So really in the core, in the general ed classroom, we are looking for intentional moments throughout the day during whole group instruction where teachers are really tuning in to what their multilingual learners need, helping them access the content. And that can look a lot of different ways, and we'll show you some of those ways here in a moment. We're also looking for some small group instructional time where they're getting more English language development. So really strategies to increase their productive language. So whether it's their writing or their speaking, but it's really intentional around their English language development. And that can look like being in a group with other multilingual learners, and that would be during a time of no new class instruction, and that can happen in the core or tier 2. So again, some students are going to get more services than others, depending on their needs. So we did a little, when I was writing the grant in the fall, I had to share some data with the state. And so I did a little digging on Washington State Report Card. And you can see our 3-year trend for 9th grade on track. So in 21-22, we had 32% of our 9th graders on track. 22-23, 49%. And then in 23-24, we were at 45%. For English language learners. Thank you for that clarification. Yes, I'm talking specifically about our multilingual learners here. Our 4-year graduation rate, our trend here is 21-22. We started at 64%, 22-23, 76%, and 23-24, 73% for our multilingual learners. Our 3-year multilingual exit rate. So this is students who are transitioning out of the program. And so, yeah, nice increase there. Of course, 3 years ago, we started a new assessment. So we had the WIDA instead of the ELPA. Both are English language proficiency assessments. And so in 21-22 was the first year of that assessment. So of course, we had, I think, 15 students transition out of program that year. And then the second year, we were at 6.87% of students transitioned out. And then last year, we had a nice bump of 8.8%, which was great. I will tell you there are a lot of variables involved in that, one being they did change the criteria just a little bit. So the state overall did see an increase. So every year we just hope to see more and more students transition out of multilingual services. And so we really, that was the good data, right? We liked that data, but we had some data that we felt we could work on. So here's one. We're looking at multilingual students who have not exited services in more than 5 years. The classification that the state uses is long-term English language learners. Rebecca cued me into a term the other day called experienced language learners, which I liked. But of course, the state calls them long-term English language learners. And we really have, the state is at 32% of students in Washington State are long-term English language learners. The other fact she shared with me is, she said Washington State's pretty high compared to the rest of the country for long-term English language learners. West Valley School District is at 38%. When I first was looking at this data, I was filtering the data wrong, and I told Stacy Drake we were at 46%, and we were like, oh no, state of crisis. 38% is still too high for our students remaining in program for that long. And then at the middle level campus and at the high school, I would tell you that 75 to 80% of our multilingual learners have been in program for 5 or more years. So we really felt like the urgency around what can we do to increase the awareness of the needs of our students and make sure they're really getting the support that they need. So that's a big chunk of the work that we're doing this year. The other piece of data that we looked at and we're like, okay, we need to do something here is our multilingual students who are also duly qualified for special education and ML services. And the state is at 19%, and we in West Valley were at 28% of our students were duly qualified. So that's an interesting statistic, and we were like, we want to look into that a little bit and find out why the difference there. So we set some goals. We said we'd like to increase professional development for our teachers. We have a nice amount of teachers who have been trained in GLAD and PSYOP strategies throughout the district. In fact, K-5, you'll find very few teachers that don't have the training. Every year we have trainers of trainers in our district, so they actually train our new teachers, and we make space for that to happen during the school day for them. So we're increasing that. We're really going to be looking at our larger buildings that have at the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade level, helping them embed these strategies in their planning, especially around our new HMH into reading curriculums, making it intentional. So again, multilingual services are really about being intentional with access points for success. We've started classroom walkthroughs with the lens of what's happening in our classrooms, right? In terms of meeting the needs of our English language learners. So Rebecca and I will join an instructional coach at the building, and we'll go through and we'll look at what's happening, and we'll have a nice conversation about it, and then ways that they can support the teachers, and just looking for those implementation of best practices. And then we thought, and I spoke with Susan, our special ed director, and we've looked at a book study, a process that we think might bring some clarity for us. We want to reevaluate the referral process of multilingual students for special education. And so we did find it's Steve Gill is the author. I don't know if anyone's familiar with him, but it's something called the critical data matrix, and it's really about the referral process, how to determine whether or not to continue with an evaluation for a multilingual student, not just looking at language, but really looking at the whole child and their needs. So we're in the middle of that book study now. So Rebecca's going to talk a little bit about the professional development. I'll give you. Oh, okay. So you can just. What do I? Just this arrow. Yep.
Okay. So, in looking at professional development this year, we are offering our teachers GLAD and SIOP workshops. GLAD is Guided Language Acquisition Design, and SIOP is Sheltered Observation Instructional Protocol, which are programs that give strategies to support multilingual students in the classroom. But the strategies are great for all students that give access to the content at the student's level or of need. And so we have some 4-day workshops for GLAD and 2-day workshops. We also have a combined GLAD SIOP after school workshop for teachers to come, bring curriculum, and then get some help with scaffolds and supports. And we've really centered around the new reading curriculum, HMH. Oh, did I go too far?
Yeah, that was correct. I just added it.
Oh, okay. Oh, so this is what you might see us working on in professional development. I think this was a 4-day workshop inside a teacher's classroom. There's a lot of engagement when you use the strategies of GLAD and SIOP. The next professional development piece is instructional coaching. We have Jessie Golbeck, who's at the middle level. She's the instructional coach for 6th to 8th grade, and she meets with teachers during plan or before or after school to support them around instruction for multilingual learners. And then teachers can also meet with me, and I also lead PD for high school and our elementary schools. And so we're just making sure that we utilize our time to make sure that all of our students can access the content and then increase in their English language proficiency. And we also have a professional development coming up for teachers where we're going to really dive into the English language proficiency standards, which is WIDA, and WIDA does not stand for anything. Like normally in teaching, we have an acronym for everything, but it doesn't anymore. And we're going to dive into how they can utilize those language standards within the classroom for their students and tailor them to their students' proficiency levels. And we're going to center our training this year on 3rd to 5th grade in our larger elementary schools that have the most multilingual students. And that is coming in the next month. So implementation. Okay.
So the implementation of these services, we hope for teachers to take away from those trainings and implement them immediately or pretty quickly into their classrooms. And after they've had the training, they have the opportunity to do professional or to plan independently, to work with the instructional coach, to work in their PLCs, their professional learning communities, their grade level teams. And so they really have the opportunity. In fact, last week we had a 4-day GLAD training at Cottonwood. And one of the teachers, I was in her classroom yesterday. So she was out Monday through Thursday last week, no school on Friday. She comes back and she's in the classroom yesterday. And I observed her using 2 or 3 different strategies. And she came up to me and she said, the engagement is incredible. My kids are loving this. So she implemented those strategies right away, which was really exciting. Also, again, evaluating the effectiveness of that professional development as we walk through. We're looking at how can we improve professional development? What are we seeing teachers use and what are we not seeing? And then how can we improve that? We do also ask for teachers to report on the strategies they're using through our progress monitoring. It's an online platform, so they share how the student's doing and they let us know what strategies they're actually implementing. So that's great for self-reporting on the work that they're doing. So we're going to talk a little bit about some pictures and some strategies that are being implemented in the classroom.
This strategy that this teacher is using in a third grade elementary, was it third grade? For this fourth grade, excuse me, elementary classroom is a sentence patterning chart, but he did a little bit of a variation where he used a whiteboard and they used vocabulary that was current to a unit that they were learning in class. And the sentence patterning chart gives students an opportunity. On the chart, they have adjectives, nouns, adverbs, verbs, and prepositional phrases that they build a whole sentence together. And the students were so engaged in this activity. There were 6 students around the table, and I think they met for at least a half hour that day. And each student was using the vocabulary words and some of the word, what was the one?
Like exquisite.
Yes. They were using them correctly and then they were adding to their sentences, and to see the success that they had using this kind of strategy was great.
The next strategy is a turn and talk. So we really encourage that academic discourse or lots of opportunities to talk. It might also be referred to as a 10-2. So teacher talks for 10 minutes, students have 2 minutes to share with one another. Wonderful strategy, and you can see all students in this group are actively engaged.
So here you see popsicle sticks, but they're used for a reason in the classroom, and the strategy is called numbered heads. And using this strategy, a teacher will give a subject to a student or content to the students to talk about or a question, and they can discuss it first amongst themselves and then prepare an answer. And in this class, she was using sticks to call all different students in the class. And if a student doesn't know the answer, the teacher will put the popsicle stick aside and sometimes tell the class or the groups to put their heads back together, think about an answer so that student then can answer later. So this is a really great cooperative learning tool.
I think the really important thing to say about this strategy, it's holding the student accountable for having a response. So even if they don't know, they have the opportunity to come back to their table group. Even for a student who maybe doesn't have very much English, they can mimic the response of their group. So it's giving them that tool for success, right? I can say it because my table has helped me with it. The next strategy is, of course, sentence frames or paragraph frames. So giving students an opportunity to access the content, starting with a response and kind of filling in the blank, providing some structure for them so that they are able to respond to a concept as well.
This strategy is cooperative paragraph. The cooperative strip paragraph is a writing strategy that helps students learn to write cooperatively and effectively, and they end up bringing their pieces to a sentence and or bringing a whole sentence, and then they rearrange the paragraph order, and in the end they have a piece of writing that they can use in their lesson. And so this really helps those reluctant writers or new writers to English really solidify what your sentence should have.
This is an example of a slide that was actually enhanced from HMH into reading. It's a vocabulary word. The vocabulary word is counsel. Counsel. It's used in a sentence. It's got a realistic photograph, and then at the bottom, it actually has it's not an example of one that is a sentence stem. It's like giving them the choice of words, I believe, to use. But again, giving the students an opportunity to orally express the word in a sentence. Many of the slides had sentence stems.
Okay. These are examples of different input charts. There are pictorial input charts, narrative input charts, and comparative input charts. And this enables a teacher to build background on the subject that they're learning about and use picture representations and write down what students know about the content that they're learning in the class.
What I like about this, the input charts, is oftentimes the information is chunked by color, and teachers are giving the information and often saying, say it with me. Students have the opportunity to repeat it. So it's really imprinting on the student's brain. There's a lot of brain research around that, really imprinting that information on the student's brain and making it memorable. So it's something they can come back to and access later. This is an example of a narrative. It looks like it's a process grid. So again, information. It looks like it's beginning, middle, and end of a story. I actually didn't see this one in play. I just saw it on the wall. But again, helping students access information so they can use that in their writing or in their oral language.
Within GLAD, they use different strategies to group students throughout the class so they can cooperatively work together. And this teacher used the current vocabulary as their table names. So the teacher would call on the table group by the vocabulary word. And this one happened to be laws. Okay. And every time she called on the group laws, they would then say the definition of the word. So that repetition is really great for learning. Students have to keep hearing the vocab as well as the definition over and over to get the meaning.
These were chants. So the first one is snow. I didn't see that one in action, but I did observe the second chant in a classroom. This was, and I don't have the title on the top there, it was a text feature boogaloo. So the students process the chant with the teacher. She reads it to them. They read it together. Then she hands out these picture cards with the vocabulary that's in the boogaloo. I believe it was. Let's see. We have photographs, captions, timelines, all of those kind of things. And when they go back through the chant together, students who have the picture go up and put it on top of the word. So again, really beneficial to not only our multilingual learners, but any student who's learning new vocabulary.
And this is a scout who is giving team points. The classes, the teacher breaks them up in teams, and a scout is normally looking for the behavior standard of the class. And typical behavior standards are make good or show respect, make good decisions, and solve problems. So the scout is looking to see if the different groups are doing those things and then offering points to the different groups. And Geraldine observed that.
Yeah, I actually saw both of these in action. So the first group, the teacher said, today we're working for 300 points. Mind you, they get nothing for their points. Okay. She said, today we're working for 300 points. So the scout, that's the scout actually right there. He said, well, I saw the council table doing this. And so he went up and gave them 300 points. And the example on the right, in that classroom, they were working for 7 or 3 points. And she had them turn around and tell me why 7 and 3. And they said they're working on groups of 10. So, multiple strategies embedded in this one. Okay, this is our English language development tabletop. So this came with HMH, our Into Reading program that was just adopted. And this is directly connected to the lesson of the day. And so it's a great resource for, again, multilingual learners, but again, I would say you could use it with other students as well. It's reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And if I'm on lesson 10.5, I can flip this book up to lesson 10.5, and it's a direct correlation to the core lesson for the whole class. So it's an excellent tool to either pre-teach or reteach our multilingual learners.
This is a variation that the teacher was using of the Frere model of vocabulary, where Pardon?
Sorry, it was at the middle.
Oh, at the middle level. And the Frayer model, normally the student puts the vocabulary word. Sometimes I would have students put write the word in their own language, the definition, draw a picture. Sometimes you draw a non-representation of the vocabulary word as well. But again, we know that writing and pictures really help solidify that content for the students.
More examples at the middle level of language stems. These were specific to having conversations. So how do we have a conversation in this class? Here are some language stems to help you have that academic conversation. And this is a middle level example of a comparative input chart. So I don't really have any specifics on that. It just was one that I saw. So nice to see it being used at the middle level though. So again, some other high yield strategies when working with students, and this is really centered around the work that's happened at the high school level. Rebecca's really worked nicely with them around assessing, I guess, prior knowledge, building that background knowledge using gestures, visuals, realia, thinking partners, and having clear explanations. And then also providing structured support using sentence frames, word banks, graphic organizers, and modeling. So a plethora of strategies that can be used to support our students and help them have success and really develop their English language proficiency. We're also engaging, like I mentioned, we have that data that shows that we have a high number of students who are dually qualified in special education and multilingual. Years back, when I was multilingual instructional coach at the middle level, I remember testing students on the annual WIDA, and more than 50% of the students in the room were students on IEPs. They were multilingual and they were on IEPs. So one thing we're really careful about in education is not over-identifying our multilingual learners as students with special needs. Having not being proficient in the English language does not mean you have a disability. So it's something we always consider. That taking that into account, we also don't want to not evaluate a student just based on language. So this book study, we're just getting into it. We have only had our first planning meeting, but we're working, Rebecca and I are meeting with Susan Almason, the special ed director, Stephanie Melton, the assistant special ed director, a school psychologist, I just lost Megan Alderson, and then Minerva Pardo is going to join us. There's a family interview component to this evaluation process. So we included family engagement on that book study. And so we're really hoping to gain some insight about looking at all aspects of the child when those referrals are made, and then taking that out to our school psychs, hopefully next fall. That's our goal. So that's it. Any questions for us? Or I guess back to your seats and then we'll take questions.
Yeah.
Well, Geraldine and Rebecca, thank you for an informative presentation. And if the board has any questions, good time here for a question and answer.
I just have a couple. They're numbers questions. When I look at the enrollment report, it breaks it down and there's bilingual students. Is every multilingual student a bilingual student on our enrollment report?
If they're in the so you can be bilingual and not be in the transitional bilingual program.
Okay.
But if they're in the transitional bilingual program, yes, they're a multilingual student.
Okay,
Right.
so
That's confusing.
Yeah, it is confusing, but yeah, those are the students that are in program. And so we do have students that exit program and then they're no longer on the count for the ELL, the transitional bilingual program at that point.
okay. Would it be possible, so the slides that you had at the beginning about transitioning out and progress toward graduation, et cetera, the percentages are helpful, kind of. It would be interesting. I would be interested in knowing the actual numbers to go along with the percentages. It just, I think that would help illuminate some things, at least in my own mind. So if
Yeah,
that's
I
possible.
can get that to you,
that'd
to
be
the whole
great.
board. Yep,
Yeah,
Thank
thank you.
you're welcome. And just for the slides, Michael, that you see here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to get my head wrapped. I mean, like I can see in the enrollment report, for example, that we have, of the, 5,000 or so FTE that we have 523, or I'm sorry, 525 bilingual students. And so just trying to get my
Okay.
head wrapped around how many students we're talking about. And that's just more of for my own edification and curiosity.
Yes, I can get that to you.
Thank you.
Perfect.
And another thing, when the board has questions like that, it's nice that, Geraldine, you can provide the information to me and I'll put it in my superintendent's report for a future board meeting. That way it's in the public record and it's shared with the public as well, so they get the same
Okay.
information.
Yes, I'll get that to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Any others?
So just, go ahead.
Go ahead, Steve.
No, just a quick comment. I just appreciate, as you're talking through this, just always trying to improve on where you're at and rethinking strategy all along the way. Just appreciate that. And a question, if I wanted to come and observe something going on, what would be the best way to do that? Talk to you or?
I'm happy to have you along on a walkthrough would be
Okay.
totally fine. If I wasn't with you and we hadn't arranged it, I would just check with the building principal.
Okay. I'll
But
talk
if
to
you
after.
wanted the lens of the multilingual learner, Rebecca and I would be happy to assist you with a walkthrough with that lens.
I think
Yeah.
that would be most helpful because you're going to be able to point out, here's a GLAD strategy and you'll be able
Yeah.
to show how we're implementing what the teachers are learning in the professional development. So that'd be nice.
We'll actually be at Mountain View at 1:15 tomorrow if you'd like to join us.
I'll check my schedule.
Let me know.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I do appreciate just seeing the implementation. It's just very much, it looks like you're thinking outside the box and how do we engage the student in order to learn? And in those implementation examples you gave, are those gen ed classes or are those specifically ELL classes? And
Really good question. Those are general education classes. One of them, some of the examples at the middle level were from an intervention class, but where they might get a little more extra English language development support. But we are really, it's changed. The model has changed. English language development used to be more of a pull-out type service. And now we're really saying to the teachers, you are not just teachers of your content, you're teachers of the language of your content. So it's the academic language that students are working. A lot of our multilingual students are socially proficient, right, in the English language, but not necessarily academically proficient. So that's really the focus, is the academic language.
do you get a lot of buy-in from the teachers on the, because a lot of it right now, because I know the grant was just new this fall, and so it's implementing it now, but it seems like a lot's going towards the professional development of teachers. Do you get a lot
So
of buy-in from
the
them?
grant's been around for a very long time. I can't even speak to how long it's been around. This was the first year we had to have board approval for it.
Okay.
So it's a formula grant. So it's not a competitive grant. So it's one, as long as the state has the funds, we will receive them as long as we do the work. We fill out the grant, we set goals, we work towards them. Do we get a lot of buy-in? Yeah, I think, we're all always learning. We're always working to improve. I do want to give kudos to Peter because years ago, and I think it was like 2011-ish, he invested heavily in GLAD training for most of our elementary staff. And so it's been really easy to keep up with that because we have two trainers in our district. So we no longer go to the ESD and pay a lot of money for the training plus pay for their sub. We only pay for their sub. And then I pay for the trainers to do some planning. So we're in a really good spot at the elementary and middle level. Rebecca's a PSYOP trainer. And so some of the PD she provides, especially at the secondary level where PSYOP seems to be more of those easier to implement strategies for the secondary schools, she's provided that to the high school. So just continuing to talk about it. It's kind of our motto, instructional coaches, we say, be the blanket, right? Sometimes we have to hear things multiple times, but that's the beauty of the walkthroughs and the instructional coaching. It's that job embedded professional development where we're constantly talking about it. So
Right. For the guided language acquisition design, we're at the point where all of our veteran teachers have received training. And so now it just, if there's someone new to the district, then we can jump in and make sure that they get up to speed. And remembering that some of our schools, Autanam Valley this year had no new classroom teachers, so there was not a need to train at Autanam. Last year, Apple Valley had no new classroom teachers. So, we're at a nice place where we have built that capacity in district for Project GLAD. And then for the sheltered instruction observation protocol at the secondary level, I think it really does appeal to our secondary teachers because they can see, right, I'm a social studies teacher, I got my social studies content, and then Rebecca comes in and says, okay, with SIOP, you need to think about the reading, writing, listening, speaking. So not only the social studies content, but how are you going to have the students engage with language, reading, writing, listening, speaking. And so really there's that English language development target for your lesson as well as the content of the lesson. And that is across all content areas. And so it's really nice to have our instructional coach be able to help teachers think about it. And I think when you frame it that way for our secondary teachers, it makes sense. So they're like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm going to have my students do something, engage with this content, either through reading, writing, listening, or speaking, or maybe multiple in the lesson. And so just having that thought partner of Rebecca being able to think through your lesson, how do I bring in the English language development skills? It's been very well received by our secondary teachers.
Yeah. And I think I would just reiterate that it's about being intentional and knowing who your multilingual learners are and being intentional in your planning. So yeah, thank you.
Great job. Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions? No. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, next we have the public comment of non-discussion agenda items. So we may have people in the audience that are interested in the discussion item. Just to preview, that's going to be item 10 on the agenda, which is capital projects. There'll be a discussion of the school board regarding the single-use bathroom project that was previously approved by the board and has been placed on an indefinite hold while the board has opportunity for discussion. And so there may be some interest in some public comment there. And that would be item 11 on the agenda, public comment of discussion items. So at this time, if there's a public comment of a non-discussion item, that we could have a public comment. Knowing that you will have time for public comment of the discussion item as item 11.
Okay, I apologize for being a little late here today. I just wanted to be a parent and see my daughter play basketball downstairs. I hope you could gather by the loud roar at the end that we won the game.
I was going to say, we need an update.
All right, thank you, Dr. Finch. Just moving on to item 8 on the agenda, the approval of the consent agenda. Again, anyone that has any item in particular they want to talk about, we can, or if someone would like to make a motion to approve, we have the minutes from the January 28th, the minutes and study session, approval of resignations, retirements, and separations. There's one item there as well, so.
I'll make a motion.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. We'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0 on approval of consent agenda. We also have agenda item number 9, action items, approval of travel requests. Again, I'll make the same comments. We can take those all as one item, or we can break those apart if there are individual comments or questions you would have on any of those items.
I'll make a motion to approve the travel requests, including the 3 that came to us today.
Thank you for that. I was going to mention that, but thank you for including that. Mr. Wolcott?
Just a question then,
Yes.
just to make sure. So there's 6, right?
Yes, that's correct. It's
Correct.
item 9A, and it's 1 through 6.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
And that included those additional items. There was a later addition that came out. Okay, do we have a motion?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item 9 on the agenda, approval of travel requests. We'll go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries to approve the travel requests on the agenda, items 1 through 6. Moving on to Item 10, I'm
actually,
sorry.
9B.
9B, sorry. Approval of the 24-25 highly capable program or HICAP program. Looks like there are 4 items listed there, annual plan 1 through 4. We can again have discussion on those or answer any questions, or we can take a vote to approve the items as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the items as presented.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kephart. So we'll go ahead and vote on item 9B, approval of the 24-25 highly capable program plan. Go ahead and vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Item 10,
All right, very good.
discussion items, capital projects. So there were 4 items, as Dr. Finch alluded to. I guess we are going to hold off on the restroom issue until we've had a chance to do a little bit more discussion and research on it. But again, there are 3 other items there. And do we have,
Well, just wanted to make sure that we're on the same page in that the process on how we got to where we're at today. So, and I did have Tara Kobe. If Tara, you could come to the microphone, because we had, I put together an article that I posted to the website and include in the board packet. We had that on Friday, and that kind of gave the background. Tara Kobe was helped to lead a community initiated effort here to educate the board on the benefits of single-use restroom, and Tara presented to the school board. I included her presentation from the past in the board packet, and there was also a frequently asked question that Tara had found from her research, really from across the country. We include that in the board packet as well. There are the rendering drawings that we include in the board packet. I also include that one of those on the website so people could see what the rendering drawings looks like. And then I include that article in the board packet as well. Just wanted to maybe start off the discussion, give Tara a chance to talk again through that process of where you had looked across the country, you had gathered signatures, I believe over 700 signatures, brought that to the board, and just wanted to have you a chance to share with the board again the information that you had shared. It's been quite a while since you had a chance to address the board. So I wanted to start off with giving Tara a chance to just kind of get the board up to speed.
Thank you. So this actually has been going on for a really long time. The first time I brought this to the board's attention was in the fall of 2021, when my second son was a senior at the high school, and he came home one day and said that he had been in the locker room after his weights class or prior to his weights class, and he was changing, and noticed that there was an individual who was transitioning from female to male, and they were changing in the locker room. And that made him very uncomfortable, to the point that for the rest, this became a regular occurrence for him that this was happening. And so he started just changing in the bathroom stalls because it felt for him very uncomfortable. And he was not alone in this. There were multiple of his friends that were also in this class that were experiencing the same discomfort at this, and I thought that seemed not an appropriate thing that should be going on. So I talked with him. I started talking with other parents, finding out if there were other situations happening at school. And there was a young woman who was in the restroom taking care of things, and as she was in there, she heard a male voice in there as she is taking care of things, and was, shocked, feeling very vulnerable at that moment. And so anyways, she brought the concern to her mom, who talked to Mr. McMurray about it, and Mr. McMurray expressed that as an admin team, their hands were tied, that the state allows that there cannot be any, what is the word? I'm drawing a blank. I'm sorry. Segregation, or you can't force somebody to use a certain place, a certain restroom, or a certain whatever. And so there was really nothing that they could do besides offering for any student who did not feel comfortable to be able to use the staff restroom that was near the office. And so anyways, I started doing some research. And so over the course of the next 2 years, I guess. Anyways, I brought it to the board's attention, and then I started doing some research myself and realized that this was not a new thing, that it was happening in other places in the country. The entire several school districts in Minneapolis and St. Paul were experiencing this and having tremendous success. It's been going on for a number of years. So they're on, like, I think this first for them started back in like 2012. So it had been going on for 9 or 10 years, and they were doing it. So I reached out to them. I got information from them, saw kind of what they were doing and the results of their surveys. And then I decided I wanted to go and see this in person. So I actually took my 4 kids who were home. My senior graduated, and my 4 kids that were left at home, we actually drove down and went to Grant High School. And there were a variety. I got in touch with a firm down that has an office in Portland and also in Seattle on the west side. And she walked me through, and I got to talk to the administrators, to the custodians, to see all of the restroom options, how they had revamped this high school to be able to allow these all-inclusive restrooms. And all of the questions that anybody could throw at me in my research, I can give you an answer for what is the, I guess, what's the answer, so to speak. Is it a perfect solution? Absolutely not. There's not one. There will still be, I'm sure, problems somewhere along the line. Somebody will probably find something. But what I've learned in my research is that we're providing a situation where every student, regardless of their gender identity, their whatever this is a safe space for every kid. And if you look at what you are doing, like in your homes, you have a bathroom. Boys and girls use the same bathroom. And I know I've talked to a lot of people within my family, like in my immediate family, my children, I've heard all of the complaints. Well, what about this? What about this? And I can talk to you about all of those. I don't know if we need to go into that or if you just want to ask questions, but recognizing at the point that I was doing this research that we had excess funds and we were trying to figure out what to do with it. A group of community members decided to take around petitions, create a petition, and go around to several public spaces where there were a lot of community members from West Valley, and to see what kind of support we had. And so I printed off all of those. Anyways, we got between 250 to 300 votes or signatures in person. So I had copies of, I have the copies of them. Then I wasn't the only one collecting signatures, so I've got some of them that I just printed off. And then I created an online petition, and we got 350 signatures there. So when we brought this to the board initially back, I presented in July, I think it was July of 23 or 22. Anyways, and we had a lot of support, and I was grateful that the board listened then and said, okay, what are the questions? What do we have? How do we solve questions like, okay, what's public, what's private? Are there cameras? What are we seeing? How is this being used? How is this? Anyways, there was a lot of questions. And what about bullying? Can somebody be shoved in the stall? Anyways, there's a lot of questions. And so there's a lot of those answers are in the presentation. I'm happy to answer any of those questions that you have. But anyways, I have all of these here, as well as I was printing off some of the stuff from the frequently asked questions from the Cunningham group, which is the group out in the Midwest that has done multiple of these remodels in their schools back there. And then I pulled up an email from the firm that I was in touch with down in Portland that also has the office in Seattle. It's called Malum. And I worked with Alyssa. I'm not going to pronounce her last name right. Anyways, she gave me a list of the schools around the state and the Northwest that just their firm has been responsible for in the last 5 years of making the change to the all-inclusive. I will say there's a right and a wrong way to do it. And so as I've been able to sit in meetings with the architects and help with Joe Connolly as we've gone over and drafts and things that they can be done wrong. So it's really important that they're done right. We were in the Seattle airport. Seattle SeaTac just made some recent renovations. They did a terrible job. I'm going to just tell you right now, they did not do it well. You walk in and you feel like you're in a closed room. You can come at it from 2 ways. The wall is floor to ceiling, And I was just there a few weeks ago, and I was walking past, and you go through the C terminal, and you come up, and there's a doorway, and it shows restrooms. And I saw two gentlemen walk in that way. And as they kept going, it's a really huge bathroom. So the wall went on for probably almost like the length of this room. And I got to the other end, and I saw two ladies walking in the other doorway. And they walked in, and then I heard oh, and they turned around and came back out, and they were like, oh my gosh, we're in the men's restroom. And there was a CTAC person sitting outside, and they were like, no, this is for everyone. Anybody can use this restroom. It's okay. And they kind of like tentatively, walked back in. And I had used that bathroom a month or two before with my daughter, my 16-year-old, and we walked in, and I was like, okay, I really want to see what this bathroom is like, because I've been doing all this stuff and I've seen the changes. And we walked in, and nobody else happened to be in there. So we went in and we used the restroom. And when we walked back out, a gentleman came out of the stall right next to us. And I could just, my daughter I could just see her, like, she just goes, like her shoulders went up, and she kind of just, okay, like the gentleman there was nothing scary or anything about it. He did nothing inappropriate, but I could just tell she was like, oh, just kind of put her a little bit on edge. And so we walked out, and she goes, Mom, that did not feel safe. Like, that was not like, and again, nothing against this gentleman that was in there, but it felt like you were in a box. And one of the key elements to having these bathrooms be successful is having the space where the bathrooms are is very private. Everyone has their own stall. It's very private. But because the rest of the space is public, you can have cameras that allow you there's monitoring. We have the Phoenix services at all the schools, and they will have access to those cameras where they would be able to see it, and they would be able to monitor it at any time. So you have to have the sinks. Like, if you envision going to like Leavenworth at Christmas time, and you see like the lineup of porta potties, right? They're all individual. Anybody can use them, but then the sinks are out in public where everybody can see. It's a very public space. And that is where you find the success in these, is you keep it, it's on a corner of it's on a corner of a hallway is the ideal, where everything is open. And so you can see what's going on. These bathrooms allow for less vaping, less bullying, less tagging, less gathering when they should be in class or whatever else. Like, it solves a plethora of problems, and they only lock from the inside. They have their own ventilation system. So they can, in the school that I went through, they were actually individually, each stall was recognized as an individual room in the school so that it was accounted for. There are advantages, like if one bathroom with one stall in a restroom currently gets like broken down, and a male custodian has to go in there and take care of it, generally the entire restroom is shut down. But when you have these, one individual stall can be shut down, and the other 9 or 10 or however many can still be utilized by male or female. There are a certain number of requirements where you have to have a specific number of bathrooms available for males and females in a school. And when you have these all-inclusive ones where anybody can use them, it actually allows for you to have more, because you've got more options for the men. There's always a lineup of women in the bathroom, almost no matter what. There's always more female restrooms, but this way you have enough for everybody. The men can use them. The men, so if you have a special needs, or somebody we've got a basketball game down there, so you have a ton of community members. You have people who maybe need assistance in the bathroom, and when you have these setups, there's a possibility that's much easier for somebody to be able to have help. And it's, you're not waiting in line. So anyways, there's a lot of benefits to these. Again, I'm sure it's not a perfect solution. There's still, the high school said that, we still have problems. There's still people that tag them. He said it's usually the freshman boys. They have the video cameras. They can see who it is, and they talk to him. There was a concern about, well, what if the guys are peeing on the seat and the girl comes in there? What if the girl is taking care of her monthly duties and it's not clean? And the custodians that I spoke with said, this issue is resolved within a matter of like 1 to 2 weeks. He's like, every year. It only takes a week or two before those boys know that there's a girl waiting outside, and she's going to tell them, get back in there and clean up your mess. Or and you have before these would open up, you would have an assembly or a time where you're meeting with the students beforehand and saying, listen, be respectful. You're in a space that is now public. It's both, both people are using it, so make it available. It's just a safer space, and it gives us an opportunity to have a place where anybody can use it at any time, and it's a safer space for our kids, all of our kids. So.
All right, thank you for your comments and information, very useful. I just wanted to remind everyone, again, this is a public comment discussion.
No, actually, I
Discussion on the
asked
board.
Tara to be, kind of kick off the board discussion.
Oh,
So
okay,
that she had presented previously to the board,
right.
and I
okay.
just wanted to give her a chance to kind of recap her previous presentation.
Right, so are you allowing the public?
Oh,
it's not-
there'll be public comment after the
Okay.
discussion, but I was wondering, did the board have any questions for Tara? And after that, then the board could have their discussion?
Yeah, I'll
Go ahead.
I'll go ahead. Tara, I
Sure.
do appreciate the countless hours you've put into this. I know I imagine you can't even count how many hours you've probably put into
It's
this.
been a
and
few.
so, I appreciate it. And it just shows your concern, and I think our state law, the majority of us don't agree with it, and that's the reason you have something like this. I've looked over the plans, and I do think that these are safe bathrooms. And I think they create that safety. And maybe this isn't a question for you, Tara, but more for the board. Here, one of the struggles that I have with this is, so I've asked 3 administrators now, what are the issues that we're able to actually track that are happening within the bathrooms where you have different genders going in and it becomes an issue or it becomes unsafe, and there's really no way that we're able to track that at this point and I think in order to spend the $1.4 million of this bond money that really didn't go towards it to begin with, I would think that we would need to have the demand or the need, because from one administrator, not here tonight, but the comment was it's become a non-issue, and I don't know if that's valid or not. But my issue is we're going to spend $1.4 million from leftover money that was meant to go to the schools to go towards these bathrooms, and is the need for it there? I do think these bathrooms are safe bathrooms, but we're 4 years into this now, and where we were 4 years ago is maybe not where we're at today. And so I'd really love to have the discussion around that and the funds.
Well, maybe any other questions for Tara? And then Tara, you could maybe have a seat then. You don't have to
Sure,
stand there
sure,
whole
yeah.
time during the discussion.
Yeah.
Any questions?
I don't. The presentation's done well. I've
Mhm.
looked through it several times, and I talked to you a year ago, I think.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
So I don't have any questions. I have
Okay.
several comments.
All right. Well, thank you, Tara, for being here
Yeah.
this
Yeah,
evening.
thank
I know you actually had to reschedule yourself to be here, so I really
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
That's okay.
Yeah,
No
thank you.
problem. I just have to cut out in 15 minutes to go pick up my daughter.
Yeah, thank
I'll be here for a little bit.
No worries. Thank you.
Okay, here we
You
go.
first.
If we're going to have a discussion on this, I've thought a lot about this and over the last year, and I've done a lot of research, and I've put together some comments that I'm just going to read basically because I just want to make it succinct. And I still have a lot of questions. So my position so far is as a school board candidate, I was against spending the remaining bond funds following the completion of the 2 new elementary schools, since I firmly believe that the community voted on building 2 schools and not spending millions of dollars on additional projects that weren't voted on. Having said that, I have supported the majority of the projects that were voted on by the previous board. However, I would have gone about funding them differently. The HVAC systems, roof repairs, well repair, and so forth have been completed, and they were needed. I appreciate Joe Conley and the work he has done to keep the costs of the capital projects low. And I feel that he may possibly even be able to legally defease more tax money back to the taxpayer than was originally thought. As to the project itself, I am weighing everything I'm hearing very carefully. I've had people call me, I've had people email me, talk to me, still weighing things. One of the issues, as I said, I ran on was the return of the excess bond funds to the taxpayer. So one major decision point for me is doing what I can do to be faithful to the 4,178 people who voted for me. I have concerns that the whole idea sprung out of necessity after the state legislature voted to essentially allow biological men in women's spaces. I would also like to see how the legal challenges play out with the current differences in federal executive orders versus Washington state law. The tide is changing. Having heard that safety is one of the main reasons for the restroom model, I have asked, as James has said, I've asked for data on behavior problems in our current restrooms. I hear the concerns of some parents, but I don't have the data on actual instances of behavior problems. Having data for me is a big deal for me in decision making. I would like to hear from schools on the east side of the mountain who have done this and their findings on effectiveness of this. I would like to know in the meantime how the 7 or 8 single stall staff restrooms could be made available to students who for whatever reason prefer a single stall option. Finally, it seems prudent to allow the facilities committee to complete their work and hear their recommendations on the big picture. So in summary, just to repeat, 1, gather behavior data regarding our school restrooms, monitor the legal challenges of federal versus state, hear from the East Side schools on effectiveness, and hear the recommendations from the facility committee. Thanks.
That's good. As I've wrestled through this issue, and it has been a wrestle for me, I've came at it from very different points. The conclusion, as Steve said, I think it is a safe bathroom, which was not something that I originally thought it was. It is a safe bathroom, and it can work. The struggle that I have is how to pay for it, which there's a lot of frustration in the community about the money. And that frustration really gives me pause for the next levy and bond as we're moving forward. It's hard to garnish trust, and I think that this is going to be a trust issue coming forward. I think that the bathrooms could be designed that way in the future, but I don't necessarily see the need to remodel them yet. And so I think as we do rebuild and as we do make schools again, I think we probably will do that type of model because it does make sense. But I don't know if we need to remodel now with the money that we have.
I'd love to hear some.
I have no further comments to make on this. My comments are well documented throughout the entire process that we went relative to the modification of the bond resolution. I have no further comment. And you can all watch everything that I had to say about this to your heart's content on YouTube.
Well, I was hoping we can have a discussion about it. Because Joel brought up the levy. So we have a levy that's going to expire in 2026, and we've gotten a lot of emails from the community, just with this going out, and it really wasn't even it was just through bid documents that contractors found, and then they bid, and then they told somebody about it, and so, and just through that, a lot of comments have come. And so, and those comments that I've received in my email have been towards the 2026 levy, and that, how you use this money at this point is going to affect how I vote in 2026 or 2027, whenever that next levy comes out. And we are doing a long-term facility project, and we're looking at Mountain View and Atanum as the first 2 primary needs. And so for me, I wasn't here, the last 2-3 years, I do remember coming to board meeting when Tara presented, and I do think she's done a great job, but I'm struggling to approve spending the money on that. And not just that, but I look at even the land acquisition, and what would it look like for us to take the remaining funds and actually send them back to the taxpayer? What is the message that sends to our community for the future levies? Because I think we have taken care of a lot of the needs that were very evident with our HVAC, our roofs, the well, parking lot space. Like, those were very evident needs, and I think we've gone forward with those. But I don't know that this demands the further spending.
All right, well, thank you. And like my colleagues here, I want to thank Tara for
Yeah.
the fine presentation and the sharing of information. A lot of which I have seen before. It's not totally new, but there's, a lot of good information in there. Any of the community members haven't seen it before, I strongly suggest taking a look at it. I'm coming at this from a little bit of a different angle. I will say, I'm glad we're delaying the action on this so that we have more time to really think it through, consider all the ramifications, the pros and cons. And I agree with a couple of comments. One in particular, where we were just 4 years ago isn't necessarily where we are today. Things evolve, things change all the time. That all being said, and I do understand the frustration that it could present for us for future bonds. But there's a part of me too that at one point we made a commitment to try and do something about this. This is not going to be a problem that goes away. It may evolve, it may turn. We may be back here in just a few years and talking about it again. I don't know for sure. I think it's something that is pervasive throughout, not just our school district, but other school districts throughout the country. And we're going to have to deal with it at some point, whether we do it now or later. We talk about cost, and that's an important consideration. If we don't do something soon, if we decide later that we need to do something, it could cost us even more. So that's always been a big consideration of mine. I think the other thing too is we could look at something that's even a little bit smaller scale, or something to provide just a few more restrooms to kind of be in the middle of the road here and try to find some partial solution to this. I do think that one other important consideration is there are some kids that will be negatively affected by this. And if we don't do something about it, we need to consider alternatives, if there are better alternatives than what we're looking at or what was looked at a few years ago. So I'm not really sure. I've made up my mind on this. I wanted to hear from the three new members first to see where they stood. I kind of suspected that's where you were going to be. But I do think there was a reason for this at the point that it was brought up and a decision was made to try and move forward with it. The law, obviously Washington state law had a big part in this, and I recognize that and don't want to take anything away from that or add to the fact that others are in disagreement with it. Personally, there's some parts of it I disagree with, to be honest. I kind of look back to one of the former board members saying it may be the law, but sometimes it's not right. I don't know if you remember that comment, but I do. However, that all being said, I think we need to weigh this more in totality. I just want to fight the feeling that the politics are getting in the way of what we're trying to do for these students. To me, what's most important is all students, not just a certain segment. Every student matters. And I think we need to weigh that in any decision we make. Now, again, I go back to, is there a compromise, something in the middle of spending more $1.4 million or spending something a little less to accomplish a little bit of this now? I like the idea, and I've said this one before too, that moving forward, we should consider, because it's the way of the wind in a lot of public places, that single-use restrooms are becoming the way of the world. And I think it's a great idea. There's a lot of good in it, the security, the privacy. all people need privacy sometimes in the restroom. So I think that we should weigh all those factors out and not, just quickly say, okay, well, the circumstances that were before don't exist today. That may be true to some extent, but I don't say it's 100% to that extent. So that's my thinking on it right now. This was kind of a little bit of a surprise to come up so quickly. I was expecting it. I just didn't know that it was coming here in the next few weeks. I think we need to look at it overall and just, be a little bit careful and very structured on how we move forward with any decision on this and not, look at one way of solving this problem. There are probably other ways that we can address this issue because it is an issue for some parents. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. And I want to encourage public comment on this issue. Okay. It's a very important one. It's a lot of money, whether we spend it or we don't spend it, but I think the community has to play a part and weigh in on this because it's, after all, their families, their kids that are going to be attending school here, and they're going to be the ones who experience what this represents. So I'll leave it at that for my comments.
Good.
All right. With that will bring us to the public comment portion. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, members of the public, I didn't see any on the list who would like to make public comments will sign in. So no one signed in on this that I've got.
There might be some people.
All right. Is there anybody here who would like to speak? All right. Okay, is that what you're getting at?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Read that though, 'cause it's,
Okay, members of the public who would like to provide public comments will sign in. Speakers will be called in the order that they signed in to speak. Speakers will be given 3 minutes for their comments. Public comment is not the proper forum to address concerns about a specific staff member. If a person has concerns about a specific staff member, they should make an appointment with the superintendent to address their concerns. Okay, so if you want to raise your hand again, who wants to speak? 1, 2, 3, 4. How about that? So we'll start just 1 and was there a 5th person? Did I give everybody a number? 1, 2, 3, 4. Raise those again. Let me make sure I got everybody. 2, 4, 5. Who didn't I get?
yeah, you're good.
You'd be number 5, sir. Okay. All right. Would you like to start?
I'm just gonna add for my 2 cents when it comes with the cost, and I know that's been a concern. Just a reminder that the petitions that we did send out and the petitions that we got were very, very clear. Like I was very adamant for the group of us that went around and were asking people about the use of the funds. We were very, very specific. Do not sign this unless you are okay with the excess funds being spent on this project. So we have a list of 500 plus 600 people, community members, who have already said, we have our signature to say that we are okay with these monies being spent on this project. So that's my number 1 thing. And then number 2 is that when this was decided a year ago or so that the funds, how they would be, the allocation of them and how that was going to happen, the bathrooms was on the list and it was approved. So it feels a little bit, and I know I've got obviously a vested interest, but it does feel a little bit frustrating to feel like it was approved. We have had community support, which was why it got put on there in the first place. And we've gone to the effort of a lot of research. And it's not just me. I know that Dr. Finch has looked into things and had conversations. Joe Connolly has had conversations. There have been a lot of people involved in this. So I know that some of your questions, maybe to me, I'm like, well, there has been some stuff done and there is research out there. So I totally recognize the need for a budget. We've gone through a house remodel recently. I know what it looks like. I know what fun, I can appreciate that. And I'm not saying that we should spend it unnecessarily, but there is a large backing of people who have already given their support for this with these funds, and it was already approved. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Person number 2?
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm Matt Lindner, and I tend to show up when there's capital projects. I think the last time I was around was when we were talking about the desire to defease the school budgets. I spoke at the Harmon Center, and I was one of the folks who was 100% defeasement. I did not want to spend any because I felt it would have been rewarding past mismanagement to use the money the way it ended up being used. That said, this, in my mind, this project was one of the lowest priority. I understood Mountain View's well, I understood some of the other urgent needs, but this one here did not fall into that kind of urgent need in my mind. I tend to agree with what Mr. Heed said. Designing these into future schools is a good idea. It's a reasonable direction. Remodeling at this price in a existing building, probably not so much. I would like to hear what Mr. Kephart and Mr. Walcott find out in answer to their question, how unsafe, how bad are our current bathrooms? Because if there is that kind of ongoing continual problem, the type of control that's being offered, the physical controls here, are better solved by cultural controls, better solved by monitoring student behavior, disciplining student behavior, and solving the problem at the person. Anyway, the one design flaw that I do see is that in a floor-to-ceiling bathroom situation, because there is an ongoing opiate crisis in the United States, to some extent I hear about it in West Valley, although I've not seen it personally myself. If somebody goes down in a bathroom stall that has an open bottom, there's the availability of observance by the next person walking through. Whereas in a closed door situation, there is no availability for that kind of observance. So there's going to be a delay in any kind of first response. Second, if the person goes down against the door, now they have a difficulty opening it up. Whereas in a conventional open stall bathroom style, a first responder can grab that person's legs, grab their arms, and yank them out, and then treat them sort of in the open area. So that's kind of my broad take on a few different bullet points. I think it would be unwise to spend the money at this time. Thanks.
Thank you for your comment and concern. Can we have speaker number 3?
My name is Shane Moore. I have 3 students in the district, 2 elementary, 1 middle level, and I did send a letter to the school board last week on my opinion on this. I spoke when we were discussing defeasance at 2 of the public meetings on that, and I spoke to spending the money because I saw it as Joe Conley and the board doing a great job spending the money we had, and so I was excited to see this list of projects being done. On this specific project, I know a lot of times there's the discussions around our transgendered students and siblings within our community, but I've also spoke to staff here at the high school and students who do not identify as part of the LGBT community, and they have told me stories of bullying in the bathrooms. They have told me stories of a student told me a story of someone, they don't know who, slipping a note under the bathroom when they were going to the bathroom that used derogatory terms towards them. So I have heard these stories from our students. I do believe that this is an important process to show that we want to protect and serve all students within our district. I do agree with Mr. Heed's comment that we should build this into all public schools as we go forward, but we are not planning to build a new high school in the near future. And so the only way to get them in the high school is with a remodel. Thank you.
Thank you again for your comments and concerns. Speaker number 4.
Hello, my name is Casey Jones, and I don't really have a lot prepared. I was just kind of, I was wondering a question. Have we taken a poll with the students? Because I'm guessing majority of them would be against this. It'd be interesting to see their take on this. I know I appreciate you guys wanting the data, And I appreciate all the work. She might have left. Oh, there she is, that she's done. And I do see the benefit of a full-length bathroom. However, there's still stuff that goes on outside the bathroom. I'm not sure, maybe doing hair and stuff, and the girls talking. I know for a fact my daughter said she wouldn't even use the bathroom if that was the case. They get the, like you said, the cringe feeling. Maybe they'd get used to it, but this is a touchy subject. And what you said, Mr. Keppert, I really agree with. If we spend these funds on something like this, you're going to lose a lot of support of West Valley for future levies. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. All right.
Hello, I'm Don Jameson, and I don't obviously having children in the schools, but I do have a grandson. And I did send a letter to Dr. Finch, which I think got extended on. My sentiments probably line up with Mr. Jones here, and I don't even know you, sir, but at any rate, actually, when I raised my hand, it was a question. I know this is not a forum where you answer questions directly, but one of my questions really is the data. How many students feel they need this type of bathroom? Is it 5 in the high school? Is it 5 in the junior high? Is it 1? How many? And I've had a young man that's worked for me in high school, and he has encountered the difficulty, a little bit of chagrin of going in thinking he was in the boys' restroom and there was something else going on. So his discomfort level, I guess, was because he just thought the status quo was still working. Well, anyway, I do think this is an unnecessary expenditure. I'm not here to debate the future schools. The idea that this is a trend of the future that we need to adopt, I don't really agree with that. And I guess the other thing, I really appreciate the research that was done. I thought that was very interesting, and I think that's really very commendable for citizens to go out and do that. But if you think that all the citizens in this district, over 4,000 must be voting, are going to come to that understanding, that'd be a tremendous re-education of the district population. And I think that'll have a huge bearing on the fact that there was a lot of debate. I attended some of the meetings on what to do with that extra money, and it seemed like the speakers were half and half. Yet probably a lot of people are willing to understand, okay, need a well, need a parking lot, so forth. But this is something that's a hard sell. And I think we're seeing a disposition in the nation that's not necessarily moving strongly in that direction either. So anyway, the data, how many students, and is it of interest to me and my position that it's an unnecessary expenditure at this time. Thank you.
Again, thank you for your comments and your concern and for being here. Is there anyone else that we did not capture? Yes.
Hi there, I'm Dan Lovestrand. I've been in the West Valley School District majority of my life in Washington State. I think my feelings on how I would look at this is accommodation and expense. So you don't want accommodation for a small percentage of individuals to come at somebody else's expense as well. So it would be, how do we accommodate everybody's needs without it coming at somebody else's expense? Rather, it would be a dollar amount or feelings or awkwardness in a bathroom. So if there's 10% people that are in trans or whatever, should that come at the other of the majority's uncomfortable, being uncomfortable going into the bathroom? I would think that it would be simpler to leave things the way they've been and accommodate the 10% in an individual manner without discomforting the majority of the people. So rather it's these single stall bathrooms, like when you go into Walmart or anywhere, you've got your men's, your women's, and you've got your family bathroom, which gives you privacy. So it seems like it would come at a less expense financially to just put a few of these family bathrooms in, which could accommodate anybody without coming at everybody else's discomfort, doing a big bathroom. I don't want my grandkids going into a bathroom, my granddaughter, where there's going to be biological men in there, whether they're trans or not. So I think it's pretty simple and common sense. I don't think we need to go to that extreme. We can still accommodate the small percentage that are discomforted with the way the bathrooms are now.
All right. Again, thank you as well for your comments, and again for being here. Anyone else would like to speak on this subject before we move on? Help yourself.
My name's Charlie Ralph. You've, where'd she go? She had so many signatures, 500-ish?
Seven.
How many, 7? Okay. How many people are in the school district?
Well, we have, there's
In
five,
general.
Somewhere around
how many
5,000
people would
voting.
Vote.
Around 5,000
we have 5,000
5,000.
students, so that's 10,000
Okay, so
parents. or
10%
more.
of the people feel they would support it, a little bit more, 15, 12. I guess I'd like you guys to think about the future. To me, I'm just retiring. My funds are limited. Just got my taxes, and that all's going to come into play for the next levy. I have to look at that because I don't just have this income continuing to come in. Presuming probably retired also. It's something to think about. Spending money, if it doesn't have to be spent, seems foolish. And I think our government right now is going through some change, looking at different things. And I would hope you guys would take that into consideration.
Thank
I
you.
told my wife I wouldn't speak.
We won't tell her.
You're safe.
We won't tell her.
She's watching
All
right now.
right. Well, thank you very much for your comments, everybody who's attended and been here to speak on this. Is there one last call? Anyone else that would like to offer any more comments here? Okay, we'll move off of this discussion item. And again, thank you, everybody, for being here to speak and present and share your thoughts and ideas. It is vitally important that everyone share what they're thinking. It helps us make a final decision as well when the time comes. All right, moving on to item number 12, items arising. Anyone? All right, hearing none, the superintendent's report.
My report, I'd like to read more, but real quickly, it was just about our trip to Olympia. Steve Wolcott, our board representative here, is the legislative rep. We took 4 students from the high school, 2 students from our innovation center. And I'll just say briefly that I just appreciate our representatives and legislators from our district here. Senator Nikki Torres, Representative Jeremy Dufault, and Representative Chris Corey all took time out of their busy schedule to meet with us, meet with the students. Our representatives even took us down on the House floor, and the kids got to get a picture on the House floor with Representative Dufault, Representative Corey. That's pretty unusual to get to be on the floor, and just really appreciate them taking the time for our kids. And the other thing is that our students represented West Valley so well, and just really proud of our students. The legislators were very interested in their experience, both at the high school with our college and high school classes, and at the Innovation Center with our career pathways there. And so our students really represented West Valley well. And I'll quit talking there because we have board reports, and I bet Steve will want to add something.
All right, item 14, then, going on to board reports. Mr. Wolcott, do you have something?
I guess I have to now. No, I was going to say, it was a real enjoyable experience. This is the second year I've done this with the students, and it's always fun because on the way there, everybody's sleeping because we leave at 6 o'clock and nobody's saying a word. And on the way back, everybody's talking, and they slept a little bit. But I really appreciated all the students that went. They were very well articulated as they talked to the legislators. They were they presented themselves very well, and that was really exciting to see. And I don't think you just mentioned this, but Maya actually testified. One of our high school students testified on a bill along with Dr. Finch, and that was exciting. And all the kids I was sitting with in the testifying room, they're all going, well, can we clap when she's done? Because it's so serene in there, you know. And I go, sure, at least give her a thumbs up. You know? But it was a good day. And there was, I won't say what they were protesting, but they even got to see a lot of protests and picketing and signs. And we were turning left to leave, and they all said, Dr. Finch, turn right. We want to go see what they're doing. So we drove right down the middle of the protesters. It was pretty fun.
What was the bill number that she testified on?
I believe it was 1557, and it was for the guaranteed admission program. So West Valley has been a part of the guaranteed admission program as a pilot from the very beginning. I believe this is the 4th year. Maya had interviewed a classmate and talked about how it really made a difference for her classmate, opening her eyes to the possibilities. It's the guaranteed admission is if the student does the required classes for admission and has a 3.0 or better, they receive an email in October that says they are guaranteed admission to our state colleges and universities, all except for the University of Washington. There is the University of Washington Tacoma campus that they are guaranteed admission to. But Maya did a wonderful job of representing the voice of her classmate. Maya got to be the last person presenting on the bill. And then afterwards, all the lobbyists ran up and said, Maya, it's so great to have a student presenting. They hear from us all the time, but you know, she was the only student there that testified. So she did a really nice job representing West Valley.
Okay. That's it. We will thank you, everybody, for being here. We are going to go into executive session now, performance of a public employee. It's 8:32. Why don't we set it for, let's say, 9:15, and we'll see where we are at that point. If we need to add more time, we can. No action will be taken. Thank you. Okay, we have finished our executive session and we will adjourn the meeting. It is again, what is this, Tuesday, the 11th? And meeting is adjourned 9:17. Thank you.